Well, we get it rolling on the Krug Show. Hope everybody's having a great day today. It is November the 28th, 4 o'clock on the West Coast. We're right on time, 7 o'clock on the East Coast. Welcome to the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. We're also brought to you by New York-style Italian sausage. And bottom of the screen there, you see Marin Auto Glass, marinautoglass.com. Thanks to them. As well for sponsoring the Krug Show. Grant Cohn in the house. Huge week. Feels like a playoff game, Grant. Niners and Eagles go on Sunday. First of all, I know you don't go to every game, but I know you still travel to a bunch. Are you headed to Philly?
No. I'm waiting until the playoffs. I made an executive decision. I'm saving some money. I was in Philly in January. I think there's a rule that you're not allowed to go to Philly twice in 1 year. I don't think you're supposed to.
Now, you're not the kind of guy who's showing up at these games wearing a Niner jersey, so you're not necessarily, it's not like you're Breezy or one of these guys that's going to feel the brunt of the Eagle fandom because they're, wearing Niner colors. But how intimidating is their crowd? Paint the picture, Grant, for those of us. I've been to the Link, but only for Army Navy, which is a totally different vibe, I guarantee you, than the Eagles Niners. What is the vibe there? I saw some of the footage of Bills fans walking in, and it's just like a barrage of swear words and birds and throwing things at them. And what is that environment like? What are the Niners facing off the field environment wise?
I mean, I don't really walk through tailgates to get to the media entrance. I got to say, I go through a pretty sterile system, but I do see what it looked like in the stands, and it looked like one of the real home advantages, home field advantages in the NFL. How many really exist? There's so many times the Niners go someplace, and it's a home game for the Niners. When they go to LA, it's like a more of a home game than Santa Clara, but not Philly. Like Philly's like Pittsburgh. That crowd is intense. They don't have the towels in Philly, but it's the same thing. And I guess they're really rude.
They seem angrier than Pittsburgh. Are they?
Yeah, maybe they're angrier. Maybe they're ruder. I don't know. You're in the press box with me. It feels so far away. It's like triple pane windows, but it's a real. I mean, they talk about Seattle being the loudest home field. Okay, this feels like a more hostile environment than Seattle. I can't think of a more hostile environment other than the two in Pennsylvania.
What do we know what we're getting weather-wise Sunday? Is it snow? Is it rain? Is it
supposed to be like 53 degrees and rain? It's not ideal.
How do you think Purdy is going to handle the rain? Because it seems like not only did he not handle it well last year, of course, he got knocked out, but I don't think he handled the wet weather earlier this year all that well in Cleveland. I thought he had a couple balls that came off his hand in a real weird way. You would think a guy who played at Iowa State would be used to, cold winter weather. That's what they get on the plains. But what do you think? I mean, do you have more of a concern for Purdy in the wet weather?
Yes, absolutely. It didn't look that great in Cleveland a few weeks ago. It wasn't even raining that much. Ball was a little wet. And he didn't perform that well. Although it wasn't just him. It seems like anytime the Niners play in the rain, like the whole team is unprepared, particularly the offense. I can't remember the last time the Niners played in the rain and they looked good. So I don't want to put all these things on Purdy, like the failure to come back down in the fourth quarter. That's a Kyle thing. These are issues that have been with the teams before Purdy. But yeah, like his hands aren't as big as Jalen Hurts. It's going to be interesting to see how he grips a wet ball. And we're both at practice. We've talked to Kyle about this. They don't practice with a wet ball. Some teams try to simulate that. They'll pour water over the ball before every snap. Niners don't mess around with that. But maybe they should. Maybe we should ask about that. You ask, Larry. I nominate you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if there would be a game that you would want to, dip the ball, or a practice week that you'd want to dip the ball in water and maybe see if Brock could handle it, this probably would be it. But hasn't Kyle addressed this in the past that he doesn't believe in that, or something along those lines?
He doesn't believe in that, but he doesn't necessarily have good results in rain either. So I don't know. So
maybe he ought to start believing in that.
Or he lost to Carson Wentz in the rain. He put up 10 points or 9 points against Washington in the rain. 9.
One non-Eagles thing. I read a thing last night. Tell me if you've heard anything on this front. The Niners, I guess, worked out Anthony Averett. But then there was somebody had a report last night that maybe the 49ers will have interest in Marcus Peters. They did work out Jason Verrett. Kyle expressed to us that he wanted to sign Verrett. It never happened. So either they couldn't get together on the money, or
yep,
the
that's my
injury.
guess.
Maybe there's some kind of injury, or maybe there was some kind of injury release. I don't know. But they couldn't get Verrett, and they obviously were trying for Surtain at the trade deadline, couldn't get him either. How desperate do you think they are for that extra corner? And do you think would you be interested in Marcus Peters?
I don't think they're not acting like they're desperate. And you mentioned Jason Verrett. They were trying to sign him to the practice squad. I bet you they weren't offering him much money. I bet they thought, hey, he's from Fairfield. He might just play for nothing just so he could be close to home. Jason Verrett's a very proud person. I'm just guessing. That's one thing that could have came up. So Marcus Peters, same kind of thing. Hey, he's from Oakland. Maybe he'll play on our practice squad for nothing. I don't know. I don't know Marcus Peters personally, but he doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would do that. He seems extremely proud. I don't know. So they don't seem
proud.
They don't seem desperate enough to really pull this off. They probably have to give him a spot in the 53-man roster.
His agent is Doug Hendrickson, the same agent who had Josh Johnson. I wonder if, and Doug's locally based. I wonder if they would have interest in Peters, or if Peters runs too hot for them. Did you see Peters standing away from all of the other Raider defenders on the sideline in the last game? Obviously, Antonio Pierce dapped him up on the sideline, but obviously there was some disconnect there. But you never know. I mean, the NFL is littered with examples of guys who, Randy Moss tried harder for the Patriots and harder for Harbaugh's Niners than he did for the Raiders. So sometimes the culture of the team does impact certain guys. But
he's been like that forever, though. I feel like he's been a malcontent wherever he's been. He's always kind of had little. Yeah, I mean, nothing against him. I don't know him, but he's edgy. That's cool. And he used to be really good. But last year with Baltimore, he gave up a pass rating of 113. And this year with the Raiders, giving up a pass rating of 100. In the last 2 seasons, he's given up 10 touchdowns and he's had 2 picks. So he's 30. Yeah. I mean, maybe no. It's kind of like bringing in Josh Norman. No, I think maybe not. They're doing okay with the younger. They said they need to get faster. He wasn't fast when he was 23. No. He doesn't tackle. No. No.
Let's get into some of the individual matchup part of this thing. I mean, let's talk about first the Niner offense going up against Philly's run D. McCaffrey is doing an incredible job. I thought, Grant, the last couple of games was the best I've ever seen from him. He's picking and sliding like a natural running back, which is, we know he's got great straight line speed, but if he can pick and slide and weave his way through tackles, or through defenses, that bodes well. And then in this last game, he turned a couple of runs where there was nothing there at all. And he found a way to kind of turn the corner, head up field, find the nook and cranny in that defense and exploit it. Are the Niners going to be able to run the ball on this Philly defense in your mind?
Well, I think the answer should be yes. Philly defense is interesting because they got Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter at defensive tackle. Really hard to move those two. It's really hard to run between the tackles at them. But you can run outside. Josh Sweat isn't the best edge setter. And the Eagles linebackers aren't super fast. So that's what the Niners want to do anyway. They don't want to run between the tackles. They want to get out on the edge to the left. So they're going to be going at Josh Sweat all day with Trent Williams and George Kittle and Charlie Woerner and Kyle Juszczyk and Aaron Banks. And I feel like they're set up for success. And when the Eagles start over pursuing, then that's when McCaffrey can cut it back. That's what the Niners are built to do. So they really should. I think they match up quite well with the Eagles' run defense, frankly.
Has Feliciano been an upgrade from Burford in the run game?
Yes, I think he's been an upgrade in every way. To me, I don't know what Burford really does well. With Feliciano, I feel like he can actually get a little movement at the point of attack. That's something. I don't think Burford gets movement at the point of attack. I think Burford, they kind of hope that he can get those little reach and run blocks on outside zone plays, and he can sort of get to the second level and be good in pass protection. But I'm not even sure that he does that. I don't know what the right side of the offensive line does well. So I thought it was a low bar. No offense to Spencer. He's very young. He could improve. But John Feliciano brings like grown man strength. I think now that you can actually like have runs, you can run outside zone to the right for a change. How about that? I'm going to be specific. Before, you couldn't run outside zone to the right with Spencer Burford and Colton McKivitz. You're not getting any movement with that double team block. But now with Feliciano and McKivitz, I think you might. depending on the matchup. So
I was talking to a veteran O lineman the other day, and he's like, the difference between Feliciano and Burford is the experience. And I'm like, okay. And what exactly does that mean? And he's like, well, experienced offensive linemen. He said that all offensive linemen hold. Experienced offensive linemen know how to hold and not get called. Young offensive linemen hold and get called. And I the more I watch of Feliciano, the more I think that's kind of spot on. I mean, I think Burford's probably a little bit better in every phase, right? He's a little bigger, a little longer, a little stronger, a little bit more explosive. But Feliciano knows all the tricks of the trade. Feliciano's a veteran of the NFL wars in both conferences and a decade in the league, and he knows all the tricks of how to hold and not get called. And I just think that, one of probably the most least discussed angle on the Niners' 3-game losing streak was all the penalties that they had in the run game that would put them behind the sticks. That was just too much to overcome.
Yeah. Look, I don't know. I like John Feliciano in there. I think he played well at left guard. I think he played well at right guard. I think when he was at right guard in this last game, you actually saw outside zone runs to the right gaining yards. It's hard to really rack your brain and find memories of Christian McCaffrey running right for big yards. I mean, that's not really been – that was something that Mostert did when they had Tom Compton, young Mike McGlinchey, and George Kittle out there. He could get out to the right. Debo would get out to the right on those jet sweeps and outside zones. But really, since McGlinchey went down and everything they do is to the left, I think Feliciano is important for them. I think they've been wanting to develop Spencer Burford for the future, but for this run right now, I think Feliciano makes him a lot better. And he's not even that great. He's a journeyman. He's on his 4th team. Right. But he's a grown man.
Yeah. And he knows how to play. Yep. I was talking to Jody Mack from Philadelphia this morning, and he was like, Fletcher Cox, he thinks is going to play, but Fletcher Cox does have a groin injury. Jalen Carter came back in the game and had a blocked field goal, but he actually hurt his back. He's probably not 100%. They said Milton Williams, the backup defensive tackle, has got a concussion, and he is like 50-50 whether he's going to go. And he says that they just don't have any real belief in Nolan Smith. He plays no snaps. He was more concerned about their lack of depth at defensive end, where it's Reddick and Sweat and, an older version of Brandon Graham, and that they don't use Nolan Smith at all. But, I mean, to me, if the 49ers have success running the ball, their chances of winning this game go way, way up. So I'll be interested to see, do they come out running and trying to establish the run in cold weather, wet weather, or do they come out the way they've come out? It seems like in more than a few of these recent games where they came out throwing the ball and all kinds of formation variation and different angles, and Purdy throwing it all over the place. What do you think is the key to the Niner passing game, Grant? I mean, Philly's got Byard, who had 13 tackles, and they brought him in, and he's supposedly a really good pass defender. But they don't have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson anymore, and James Bradbury and Slay. To me, it's a big part of, like, how's this game officiated? Because I think Ayuk and Debo are faster than Bradbury and Slay. But if the officials let these guys clutch and grab all day, then it might be advantage Eagles. They got a lot of playmakers in their secondary. How do you see – one, I guess it's 2 phases, right? How do you see the Niner O-line blocking up front in the pass game? And what do you think of the perimeter matchups between, the Niner receivers and the Eagle DBs?
There's a couple of matchups I'm looking at. One, Darius Slay against Brandon Ayuk. You saw last week the Niners had Charvarius Ward shadow DK Metcalf wherever he went.
Yeah.
They were not going to let the Eagles dictate that matchup and put DK on Ambry Thomas or whoever. Or Diamador Lenore, who's 5'9". Not going to happen. And that was great coaching. It worked out. I think the Eagles would be smart to do the same thing with Darius Slay on Ayuk. Ayuk is their best receiver. Slay's their best corner. You don't want to let the Niners put Ayuk on James Bradbury. They tried to do that early last. They want to do it. Don't let them do it. So I'm really curious to see, is that what the Eagles do? Do they shadow Ayuk with Slay? And can Slay hold his own in that matchup? Because I think Slay is really good. And he does get away with holding a lot of the time. He did in this last game. The other one is Hassan Reddick against Colton Kivitz, George Kittle, Ross Dwelly, Charlie Woerner. Like, what's that going to be like? I mean, can the Niners block Hassan Reddick? Because last year they couldn't. and that essentially ended their season. Are they going to take him seriously? Because when they face Micah Parsons, they take him seriously. They don't let Micah Parsons ruin their game ever. But for whatever reason, they wanted to make some point that Hassan Reddick isn't that good. Okay, he is. What are you going to do about Hassan Reddick? Other than that, I mean, the Eagles don't have a good pass defense. Like, they're 29th in yards, 31st in pass touchdowns. It's wide open. Their linebackers are slow in coverage. Their safeties are slow in coverage. James Bradbury's kind of washed. Bradley Roby's kind of washed. It's wide open. But you can't do play action. They learned that the hard way last year. You can't really do play action. So it's open, but you can't really be yourself. You can't really have the 49er identity. It's got to be quick passes. It's got to be drop back passes. And you got to run the ball. If you try to do play action, they won't react to it. They'll just come after your quarterback. And he got really injured last year. You got to be very careful with this.
Yeah, I mean, that is the big question in this, is does Shanahan, who loves the play action game, and it's a major staple of everything he does, and even, the play action boot game and everything off of the different kinds of play action you can do. Philly's not respecting the play action fake. Not only not respecting it, they're just not even noticing it. They're like, we'll play the run on the way to the quarterback. And so it's almost like giving yourself a disadvantage, because it takes a half second to carry out the fake. You're giving them a half second more to get to your quarterback. What do you think? Do you think the game plan will be a run heavy game plan, a more dynamic, like misdirection, a lot of reverses, that kind of thing, shovel passes? How do they negate Philly's pass rush without play action, knowing that those linebackers and really the entire defense doesn't honor their play action fakes at all?
It'll be a good week for Kyle Shanahan to show us how to draw up and call a screen pass. Screens would work. You got Christian McCaffrey. You got Deebo Samuel. You got all that misdirection. I mean, obviously you want to get the ball downfield to Brandon Ayuk, but if they bracket him with Slay and a safety, and they force you to work through George Kittle and Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey, like, you should be able to figure it out. I think there's a lot of quick passes to those three guys. Those three guys specialize in making guys miss. You have three guys. Those are your yak bros right there. And I know the Eagles do a good job of tackling and not giving up yak, but Kyle Shanahan is one of the best at scheming it up. So I think he's got enough. He's got the guys he wants. Quick passes, screens. What more can you do?
I think you got to lean less on the play action game. Yeah. Maybe more on it as the game settles in. But at the beginning of the game, when they're really, get Purdy in the shotgun and get that ball out fast.
That's what I'm saying.
Get that ball out fast.
RPOs, shotgun, like really kind of like the Eagles passing game. You're not really just trying to stay ahead of the chains. You're not get the ball to Kittle and Deebo 5 yards downfield, 6 yards downfield. Juwan Jennings, you see that those guys get yards after the catch. They might get 3 more yards. Juwan Jennings broke 8 tackles on one catch last week. Do a lot of that. Don't let Hassan Reddick wreck this game, please.
Is it just me? I mean, or do you, my sense of it is, now I haven't gone through and watched every snap and charted it, and I couldn't tell you definitively, but my sense of it is that the Niners have been going more with 2 tight ends with Charlie Woerner the last few weeks. Have you noticed that at all? What do you think of Woerner? Because it seems like there was a couple plays in this last game where when I rolled it back, I'm like, wow, Charlie Woerner came across the formation with a kick out block and created the space in the run game. It seems like in that pass from Purdy to Ayuk, that was so, that for the touchdown in the fourth quarter, it was Woerner who was open underneath, that he decided to bypass and go down the field to Ayuk, but it was a double tight end set. Does it seem like they're using Woerner and Kittle in the 2 tight end set more?
It does. And to me, that kind of makes you wonder about Kyle Juszczyk. They like to put Juszczyk in motion and kind of confuse you with Juszczyk and give him the ball once every other month. But maybe he's getting a little bit older. Maybe Charlie Woerner is younger, stronger, bigger, and better blocker at the point of attack. I do notice that they actually threw him a pass last week for the first time in 2 years. He hadn't been targeted since 2021. He caught that sucker and gained 9 yards, which to me tells me he's getting 2 targets this week. I remember Selleck time. Remember 7 years ago when
Selleck?
Garrett Selleck.
Garrett Selleck.
Where
Brent
it was like
brother.
The first year and they're terrible. but they would like always get a touchdown every once in a while, always everyone, because no one would cover Garrett Selleck. They forgot about him. Maybe they're setting people up. Maybe Charlie Woerner is going to become the secret weapon this year.
You know, he's not really known for his receiving, but I'll say this: the guy is a tenacious lock-on blocker, and he just keeps those legs churning. And you know, I mean, he did some nice things definitely in the last couple of games. All right, let's talk about the Niner defense. Man, this is, I think, where this game is won or lost. The 49er defensive line, as great as it is, got embarrassed last year in the NFC Championship game. You know, Kinlaw, Armstead, it wasn't that they were just awful, but, you know, it wasn't like Armstead was pretty solid. Kinlaw was just getting uprooted. I don't know if it was the knee and he couldn't lock in or he couldn't play with leverage. And those weren't the only two guys. The entire Niner D line got pushed around by an excellent Philly O-line that in my mind, they've got 3 future Hall of Famers. Kelsey for sure, and Lane Johnson for sure, but Mailata is just got ridiculous talent. I mean, he's just huge and fast and strong, and
Dickerson's quite good too.
Yeah, and Dickerson's a monster at left guard. I mean, this is arguably the best line in the game right now. And the one thing about this game that scares me is that if Philly can run the ball, and they just ran the ball for almost 7 yards a carry against Buffalo. If DeAndre Swift, Boston Scott, Gainwell, who's a really underrated back, and most maybe specifically Jalen Hurts, if these guys can run the ball, man, it's going to be a long freaking day. Can the Niner D-line do better with Hardgrave and a kind of a rejuvenated Kinlaw and Chase Young than they did in last year's game? Because if they can't, this is not going to be a game.
I don't know. Like, I don't know. The Eagles have a much different. Let's break down the Eagles' run game schematically. They're not like the Niners. They're not running outside zone. They're running inside zone from the shotgun. And so that means Mailata and Dickerson double team block at the point of attack on a defensive tackle. And that was Kinlaw last year. And that didn't go so well.
No.
And this year it's going to be Hardgrave. Mailata is 365 pounds. Dickerson's 335, 700 pounds. I don't know. I'd rather have my Armstead there. I don't know what they're going to do. Hardgrave just seems like he's going to get pushed around too. He's not built to withstand that double team. I don't know. I don't know who is. Maybe Jordan Davis or Jalen Carter, but maybe you do better moving Eric Armstead to the point of attack in the run game because you know that's where they're going. The other side, they got Cam Jurgens, and it's not as potent over there. They run left like the Niners run left. That's where they move people at the point of attack on the left side. So what are the Niners going to do about that? And then also such a big part. I mean, it's not about DeAndre Swift, right? It's about Jalen Hurts. You have to have a plan about Jalen Hurts. He has 11 rushing touchdowns this year. That's what McCaffrey has. That's incredible. And it's not just quarterback sneaks and brotherly shoves. It's also
scrambles,
scrambles and quarterback
everything.
Draws.
It's designed runs. It's scrambles. It's both.
Quarterback draws. Yeah, I mean, they won it. They won the game against the Bills on a quarterback draw. And so that's what the Niners have to be real disciplined with that. They like to get upfield. You can't rush past the quarterback ever.
Yeah.
Because once you do, Jalen Hurts will scramble and he will beat you scrambling. So I want to see how the Niners do. They've had trouble against mobile quarterbacks in the past, although not as much this year. Although Joe Burrow ran for a lot of yards on them.
To me, this is it right here, man. This is it. I mean, Hurts was just phenomenal. I don't know if he's where he ranks as a quarterback because he threw for 33 yards in the first half.
Right.
But man, if you the way he scored in the second half and how he makes every right play in the second half of games and the pressure, the bigger the pressure, the moment, the better he plays. I've
never seen a more powerful running quarterback than him ever.
Yeah. Oh, as far as any kind of short yardage, but he always makes the right decision. He does show a little propensity to mishandle the ball a little bit. And so there's a chance he'll give you a turnover on just a fumble or, but that's it. Other than that, you're talking about a guy who throws accurately. He can throw deep. He can throw short. He can find guys. He can buy more time and throw it. He can buy more time and run it. I mean, he's just, he gets rid of the ball the slowest of anybody in the whole league. I think it was like 3.14. But it's not a disadvantage. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, he has taken a bunch of sacks because he does hold the ball, but that holding the ball breaks down the D.
They do. So, and you got to know, like, their passing game is a quick passing game. It's not play action under center. It's shotgun RPO. And when those things aren't there, he just holds the ball forever behind a really good. He holds the ball so long because he can. You understand? Like, he has a great offensive line, and it's like, why would I rush this? Let me take my freaking time. And then when there's pressure, he can move out of the pocket as well. So he is a little bit like a young Russell Wilson and a guy who kind of thrives in chaos and off script, but he's just so big.
Oh, I know.
He's huge. He's powerful. I mean, he's more powerful than all of the Niners running backs, all of them.
And in any kind of short yardage, he's mastered. He does the most incredible thing in that he can stay low in the tush push, brotherly shove, whatever the hell you want to call it. He can stay low, but not have his knee hit the ground. So he can play low, but then he gets a second surge and a third surge because he doesn't dip his knee, touch the ground, and have the play end. So, I mean, it's like that play is just a crusher. Let's hit some of these supers here. Kless Limperio.
Real quick, though, like what's incredible about the Eagles is like they could be, let's say they throw on first and on, let's say they run on first down, get 3 yards, throw on second down, it's incomplete. It's 3rd and 7. You think, oh, they got to pass. No, absolutely not. That could be a quarterback draw. That could be just a handoff to DeAndre Swift. And if you are in some like passive, soft nickel defense trying to do a cute stunt game and you get out of your gap and all of a sudden you give up 6 yards, they're going for it on 4th down and they're going to get it. Like, they're a really unconventional team. And that's one of the things that I just admire about the Eagles. They're doing their own thing and they're very good at it. Sorry, just wanted to say that.
No, I think it's a key point because you're right. Steve Wilks, part of the whole, the game of football is the internal game. What are they going to do? What are we going to counter with? Well, what you would normally think, you have to reassess your whole thinking with them because they look at anything outside the 35-yard line of their own 35 as like 4-down territory the entire game. And they're not afraid to go for it on 4th and 2 because they'll either pass it short and, it's really tough to stop all their weapons, or they'll create some kind of RPO for Hurts, or they'll tush push it, or, they've any number of things. And I think Gainwell is another really underrated player in short yardage. It's like he's a very powerful, built low to the ground runner.
Because if you think about it, like the way defensive coordinators think about structuring their defense and their defensive play calls, on 1st and 2nd down, you have to honor the run. So you can't get too exotic. You have to maintain gap integrity in case they run the ball. But on 3rd down, people get freaky out there. I mean, there's people lining up in the A gaps. You got Nick Bosa walking around. I mean, you can get real exotic on 3rd down and forget about gap integrity because you're expecting a pass, especially if it's 3rd and 6 plus, 3rd and 7 plus. You do that against the Eagles, they will just run a quarterback draw for 12 yards. You have to treat 3rd down like it's 2nd down against the Eagles. And that gives them such an advantage. It's one of the reasons they've won 27 of their last 29 games, which is incredible. More teams should do it.
Yeah. And the one thing I'll say for the 49ers in their defense, the last couple of games, they have rushed the quarterback with a lot of gap integrity. Like, they didn't give Geno a run lane all night.
Nope.
And it seemed like when they sacked him almost like each time with multiple guys around him at the point that he goes down. So it's like they're doing if they can just do that next week, what they've done the last couple weeks, as far as stay in their lanes, consistent rush, getting it done with 4, not blitzing. Yeah. You've seen Wilks. He hardly ever blitzes now since they've got Chase Young. Their blitz rate has been cut in half since they got Chase Young. I think that's the right way to do it. Now, the question is, can they defend? Can they defend the pass? So let me hit a couple of these supers, and then we'll talk a little bit about the Niners secondary. Kless Limperio says, what's up, Krug? What's up, Cohn? With the rain and Brock's play in the rain, does Kyle go run heavy with CMC and Debo?
Why not?
I think he'd like to.
Why
the question is, can they be dynamic enough to move the chains by going run heavy? I think Kless is onto something there. I think Kyle would love, despite the fact he trusts Brock, I think he'd love to take the ball out of the air as much as possible and not have the Sweats and the Reddicks off the edge be a major factor. I think he'd love to run it at him all day if he could.
And I think Kyle would say that McCaffrey, Debo, and Elijah Mitchell are more dynamic than DeAndre Swift, Jalen Hurts, and Kenneth Gainwell. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, that's a big question. City Burt says, is the 49er curse real? Every team that beats them loses their quarterback for the season. Watson, Burrow, and Cousins. I don't know. I hadn't really thought about that. You're saying if the Niners, if the Niners,
sorry, you.
Yeah.
Sorry, you spent $5 to ask us a question we can't answer, but it's a good question.
It's a good question.
You can ponder it. I'll ponder
Seriously. Fish and chips. I had to use ponder more. No relation to Christian Ponder. Fish and chips says, here's £2, I believe. £2. I'm not sure what the exchange rate is. It says Kyle Shanahan, don't do matchups. System wins every time.
It's too bad. That being said, I think he understands like a weakness in a secondary when he sees it. I think he understands a weak edge setter when he sees one. And I think he's going to be all over Josh Sweat on those like crack tosses to the left. You know what I'm talking about? Where you get Juwan Jennings right next to that edge setter. And as soon as he like smacks him in the ear hole and they go around him, where you get Trent Williams pulling, Aaron Banks pulling. You're going to see a lot of that stuff, I think, in this game.
I loved what I saw from Jennings the last couple of weeks. He's just really playing well. Jack says, will Hardgrave have a counter for the tush push? I don't know that anybody's got a counter for the tush push, really.
I think you need the counter is be 370 pounds.
Right. Yeah, it might be, I think the counter to that is, I will say this, the one thing about Kinlaw that is better from this year to last year, like in that ball that, which one was it? The ball that, the pick on the Ambry Thomas pick, he got great pressure in the kind of the back shoulder of Geno, and Geno may have felt that pressure. We're seeing Kinlaw play with better leverage and with better strength at the point than he did in that Philly game last year. Can he continue?
Great to see.
It is great to see. And for the Niners, it's essential. Somebody asked me what's wrong with Kalia Davis, and I said I don't think there's anything wrong with Kalia Davis. I just think that Givens and Kinlaw are really
something right with Javon Kinlaw. That's what's going on. Something right.
Yeah. Seriously, that really is it. I think. Tinker says, "Watch our quarterback draw." Grant, watch our quarterback draw.
What is Brock Purdy going to get in the mix with the quarterback draw this week? God, Kyle Shanahan wants to do it, but he's scared. I was like, I don't know, he's a little small because he's quick.
I would say, please no,
don't do it. No,
don't do it. Sean O'Leary says 20 spot. He says, I think and fear Philly is going to go right at Charvarius Ward. He had a couple of good games, but if he gives up a big pass or two, does he go back to holding, grabbing, clutching?
That's a really good point.
Stacking up penalties. Stacking up penalties. That was the next question, which is, can the Niner corners match A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith? Devontae Smith won the Heisman. He's coming off a 100-yard day. He's a much different cover than DK Metcalf because he's got way more movement ability and jumping ability, and he can run the full route tree. It's weird, Grant. It's like Mooney Ward is made to cover DK. I think it's a major advantage for the Niners because DK doesn't have tons of moves, but Devontae does. And A.J. Brown's a big receiver who's very competitive at the catch point, who you could argue is the MVP of the league for about a 5-week stretch over the last, month and a half or so. What do you think? Ambry's given them a better look in the coverage unit. Lenore's been really good inside. Do you think that the Niner three corners can stand up to the Eagle receivers? And by the way, Jody Mack said that Dallas Goedert's trying to play this week. So it might be Goddard in there as well.
Okay. So before the bye week, Niners were playing soft zone coverage. Charvarius Ward was getting beat, committing penalties. They were getting torched.
He had to wrap up Jamar Chase like twice on the sideline in that Bengal game because he just couldn't cover him.
So bad. And then they trade for Chase Young, and everything is great all of a sudden. Pass rush is back. Don't have to blitz. Cover. Okay, but they face the Jaguars and their terrible offensive line and their quick passing game that tries to get the ball out quick. They face Baker Mayfield, who tries to get the ball out quick, and they face Geno Smith, who tries to get the ball out quick. And with this good pass rush, these corners have been able to sort of jump on routes. Ambry Thomas's interception was like he knew the ball was coming. Like, this is a different matchup. This is the best offensive line in the league. This is a quarterback who wants to hold the ball a long time. So, Travarius, you're not going to be jumping routes this week. It's going to be, how well can you cover A.J. Brown for 3 seconds? How well can you cover A.J. Brown for 4 seconds? And that goes for you, Ambry. How well can you cover Devontae Smith for 4 seconds? Because that's the game. I mean, Jalen Hurts isn't the most sophisticated passer, but he will throw a bunch of deep passes up the sideline and test you. He will. And
this team is likely to run it better. So you also are going to have to keep your eye on the run game. So that's another part of like their mindset at the line of scrimmage. It's not just like, hey, can I stay with these guys for 4 seconds? And I may need to, but I may have to peel off and actually play the run here because that's how good they run the ball.
Right. So here's the thing. I think this is what the game comes down to. It could come down to one player. Does Lane Johnson play? If he doesn't play, and the Niners can just put Nick Bosa on the backup right tackle all game, I think the Niners going to win. But if Lane Johnson plays and he's close to himself, he's a Hall of Fame right tackle, that's a tough matchup for the 49ers. All of a sudden, I don't know that they're going to be getting pressure on Jalen Hurts in this game. And then I don't know if Travarius Ward's going to hold up and covering A.J. Brown for 3-4 seconds of play. All of a sudden, I think Lane Johnson is huge in this matchup.
I think Ambry Thomas is huge.
Yeah.
What did you think of Ambry's pick? What do you think of the way Ambry's playing, Grant? Because I love this move. I mean, I said to Kyle Shanahan 3 weeks ago, I said, are you going to find more speed to put on the field? And he kind of threw it back in my lap like, well, what do you think? Do you have any ideas? And I'm like, well, what about Danny Gray? And he's like, well, that's one guy. Then he kind of scoffed at the whole idea. And then sure enough,
you just named the wrong guy.
Yeah, I named the wrong guy. I should have said, what about Ambry Thomas? I wonder if he would have given it to me. I wonder if he would have, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. But I mean,
why don't you bench Isaiah? You should have been like, hey, I got it. I bench Isaiah Oliver and play Ambry Thomas. He'd have been like, all right, okay, Larry, okay. That would have been so funny. And they did next week.
Seriously. Yeah. Well, the next week they take, I mean, and let's be honest about this. Oliver runs in the 4.6s and doesn't have the movement ability. Ambry Thomas has been not dependable and he's been very up and down.
That was kind of,
but he is a 3rd round draft choice who runs 4.4 flat. And man, this last game, Grant, on the pick on the ball from Geno to Lockett, the footwork was absolutely textbook. It's like you drew it up, flipped the hips, no wasted movement, was going to get one hand on the ball, and then got there so early. He's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to be able to get 2 hands on it, up, pick, going the other way. Ambry, I think, has been the major difference, more so than Chase, more so than Wilkes' seat, more so than any other factor. I think Ambry has been the big difference. Give me your thoughts on what the Oliver to Ambry thing has done, and what do you think? Can Ambry stand up against? Will it be Ambry Devontae, or you think Ambry Thomas Brown? How do you see those matchups?
I feel like it's changed a little bit of how Steve Wilkes calls plays. With Oliver on the field, I felt like he was terrified to call man-to-man coverage, as he should have been, because who is Isaiah Oliver covering man-to-man? He doesn't have the movement, the speed, anything. So you saw a lot of soft zone coverage, maybe to protect him. And I don't think it suited anyone else on the defense. So now that Ambry's on the field, at least Wilkes feels comfortable calling press man coverage, which is good for everyone else. And it's what Ambry Thomas wants to do. So I think it's bringing out the best in the defense. But like, who's he really had to face the last few weeks? Calvin Ridley. Okay. Good player. Mike Evans. Kind of old, but good player. Tyler Lockett. Kind of old, but good player.
Well, it's weird. They've had speed guys in the Jacksonville guys. Yeah. Ridley and Kirk could run, but they didn't have ball skills. Then you got the Tampa guys. Godwin and Evans have ball skills, but they can't really run. Now you get 2 receivers that can run and have ball skills.
Yeah, Devontae Smith against Ambry Thomas is a doozy of a matchup. And what I will say for Ambry is that he seems to be a bit of a gamer. He's made some big plays in some big games going back a few years.
He has.
So I'm not writing him off. He's a bit of a playmaker and a gamer. Ambry, if you're watching, sorry for the things I've said. I take it back. But I don't know. If I'm from Philly's perspective, I like that matchup. Devontae Smith against Ambry Thomas. I'm testing that match. I bet you could go back to I think they faced each other in college.
Devontae
and Ambry.
They
faced each other in college.
Devontae at Alabama and Ambry at Michigan.
I think they faced each other in college, and I wonder what happened. Someone should look that up.
Yeah.
Someone look that up. I bet Devontae Smith went for like 800 yards, 17 touchdowns. I'm sorry.
This might be the game, though. This might be the game because on paper, it says go at Ambry Thomas. But in reality, and I know, and people who watch the Niners every week know, Ambry Thomas is feeling pretty good right now.
He's very confident. Yeah. You got to give him that.
So
he's like J.R. Smith. It's like, where is his confidence coming from? I don't know, but he keeps shooting. Shooting.
Just don't call a timeout. Just don't call a timeout at the end of a playoff game. But that to me is a big one. One, can the Niner D-line, step up against that O-line, not get pushed around, stop the run? Can they get him into some third and longs? And then on third and long, can the Niners cover A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith? And if he plays, Dallas Goedert. I think it's going to be – I think Ambry's going to be in the fire, and how he comes out of that fire may determine the winner here. Is there an individual –
Hey, hold on real quick. 2019, Devontae Smith played Michigan, only had 3 catches for 56 yards. But I don't know. Maybe that was before Ambry Thomas. But maybe Ambry Thomas just might shut him down.
Maybe I'll ask him about that tomorrow.
I don't know.
I like Ambry, by the way. Ambry's a good talker. He doesn't talk a lot. But he's a good talker. He seems like
he's funny. He always has the people around his locker cracking up. I can't exactly. I don't want to like eavesdrop. But
he's got confidence. I mean, when you talk to him, it's not like he's not this, oh, shucks, I don't know. It's like these corners, you show me a corner without confidence, I'll show you a bad corner. I mean, they have to have confidence. And he's got confidence.
So Ambry Thomas was at Michigan. He played in that game. Oh, my goodness.
So maybe
Ambry Thomas did pretty well. Maybe that's why the Niners drafted Ambry Thomas. I take it back. I said that Devontae Smith would have torched him. 3 catches. Hey, Ambry,
maybe he's the anti-Devontae Smith.
Dang. Hey, bet on the Niners this week, huh?
Okay, that's the other one. Well, let me hit a couple more of these supers. And then Roadhog. Hey, Roadhog. He said, Eagles been down 2 scores in the first half, the last 2 games. Purdy doesn't give up leads. Yeah, the Eagles have gotten worked in the first half in the last 3 games, I believe. And
Purdy did give the Seahawks 7 points just to make things interesting. I think he was just being charitable. It was Thanksgiving. You got to be nice. That game was over. It was boring. Purdy was like, "Here you go. Come on."
Here, I'll retain the audience for you guys.
Yeah.
All day, every day. Kim says, "Larry, keep it 100. Would you take Jalen over Brock? Jalen has shown the clutch gene numerous times, unlike Purdy." I've been saying, and I took a lot of heat on this, that I think they're very, very similar in a lot of ways. And I know a lot of people push back. Come on, bro. It's ridiculous. But if you look at them, their measurables, very similar. Their leadership style, very similar. Their faith, very similar. Their everything about their scouting. If you go look at their scouting reports. I don't know
why they list Purdy at 220, because that's a lie. I'm sorry.
What do you think?
He's not built like Jalen Hurts. Like probably 210.
He's pretty thick in the legs, though.
That's sure, but not Jalen Hurts thick. I mean, they're the same height.
Jalen Hurts,
the same height.
Yeah, they're the same height. They're literally 2 pounds or 4 pounds different. I think Jalen Hurts is a little bit better because Jalen Hurts. I think Purdy's the better passer. You actually broke this down well.
I would say that. I would say that.
Yeah. Purdy's the better passer. Purdy throws with better anticipation. I think I think his accuracy's better. I think he's the better passer. Jalen's the better runner, and by far. And I think Jalen is more of a veteran. Jalen's seen more, played more.
Yeah, more battle tested, for sure.
He's more battle tested.
Yeah.
Jalen, I think also, Jalen, will make plays happen by himself. You can feel the will of Jalen Hurts when you watch Eagle games. So I would give Jalen a slight edge, but
you've seen it in big games laid down.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very impressive. And maybe Purdy will do all that stuff. Maybe he'll do it this week. We just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. Guys, me. I'm a huge Purdy fan, but I would lean towards this just in.
Are you serious?
But I would lean a little bit towards Hurts, just slightly, just because of the battle tested nature of who he is at this point. David Baker, the old commissioner of the AFL, he says, Grant, I just watched the show with your dad and love the baseball story.
This is my dad's story. So I told him about Debo talking. Debo said something to me in the locker room. It was something small. So he said this one time in the 80s, I think before I was born, Jeffrey Leonard was I'll tell the story again. He was a left fielder. Yeah, he was a left fielder. My dad wrote something about him, something critical. You know how my dad shoots from the hip and can be pretty critical. And Jeffrey Leonard said, "Hey, come here," in the locker room. And my dad's like, "Oh God, here we go." I don't know what I did. He's probably going to yell at me. And Jeffrey Leonard, had the column cut out and taped to his locker.
Wow.
So I read your article. I disagree with it. And I'm going to make it my business to prove you wrong the rest of the season. So I really would like you to autograph it. Would you sign it for me?
Wow.
So my dad was like, absolutely. And they really got along ever since then. How could you not respect a guy who would do something like that? Probably was like 25 at the time. Have that kind of poise.
Hackman was very intimidating too.
Really cool.
You know what his nickname was? His nickname was Penitentiary Face.
Right? That my dad said that. Penitentiary Face. That sounds charming.
Hackman was a tough guy.
Tough guy.
So he signed it.
He signed it, and they always got along after that.
Well, there you go. He had the respect. Some guys. Bottom line is, it's not easy to do any of these jobs, and if sometimes the players don't realize how hard it is to do these jobs, when they do respect it, then I think you've crossed into a new frontier. And the Hackman, good to see Hackman had that approach. Jesse Wade said, "How big is the Hardgrave versus Kelsey matchup? Also, how big is it to have a guy who went against this O-line every single day for 2 years? Niners win this thing 34-24. Hardgrave has played spectacularly since Chase Young has shown up. And I get the feeling, and maybe I'm wrong, but I just get the feeling that once you've played in the Super Bowl, once you've played in the NFC Championship game, you start the year with like this idea that you're going to have to play your best later. And so I just think that, when you get to that point, the Niners are in that mode, that you just get I'm not saying you're not going hard early. I'm just saying that you're getting better and building momentum as you go. I've seen a better Hardgrave in November than I saw in October. No doubt.
Absolutely. And to Jesse's point, he's gone against the Eagles offensive line and he knows Kelsey, but they know him.
Right.
They faced him too. So I don't know. He just seems like his skill set is rushing the quarterback. And what they would do last year is they would have a 5-man front. They wouldn't blitz. They would just put 5 D linemen on the line and say, "We're rushing 5. We're not disguising it. Here we come." And everyone would get a one-on-one matchup and Hardgrave would win because he's really impossible to stop as a pass blocker one-on-one. But we're talking about withstanding double teams in the run game. And that's not really what he does. And I think it's one reason they didn't want to pay him. And it's one reason they replaced him with someone way bigger than him. I'm just saying.
He does have the build of somebody that should be able to play the leverage game well with Kelsey. But Kelsey's headed to Canton. Kelsey plays with tremendous leverage. And Hardgrave is known as a one-gap penetrator pass rusher. Yeah. So it's not typically his game. This one from Bazi Mian. Watch Brett Coleman on the counter to the tush push. Who's Brett Coleman? Is that an official? Who's Brett Coleman? It's not a player. Am I losing my mind here? I thought I knew every player. Is he talking about Jack Stoll? Is he talking about, is Brett Coleman an official? I have no idea. But thank you, Bazimian. Appreciate you. Fish and Chips says a couple pounds is Rain Kyle Shanahan's kryptonite for his scheme success. I don't know about that. I think what Kyle does best is scheme up an assortment of run plays that hit you from different angles and use different personnel and different personnel groupings and different formations. So I would think.
Well, hold on though. What about all that movement? What about all that pre-snap movement? What about all those ball fakes? I mean, wouldn't that misdirection and all the stuff that he does? Wouldn't that cause hesitation? And I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one, but I would expect Kyle to keep the ball out of the air as much as possible. We got this one from Keith Murphy. Keith says AJ Brown is a different beast than DK, no doubt. AJ tore our ass up when we played him in Tennessee. We haven't beaten an elite quarterback in a while.
Yeah, I mean, that is the thing. Look at the Niners this year. Look at the quarterbacks they've beaten. The only really good quarterback they've beaten all year is Stafford.
Oh, yeah. Let me put this out there. So 2021, A.J. Brown, 11 catches, 145 yards, and a touchdown. There was that right before Christmas. Remember?
Yeah. I mean, not only that, outside of the last 2 weeks, I think A.J. Brown said, didn't he have 7 straight games over 100 yards? He had a borderline MVP season until 2 weeks ago.
They did a good job against him in the playoffs last year, but the game was never in doubt.
Yeah,
so
last year was a big throw that whole thing away.
He had 28 yards in that game, but the game was over before it started.
Little says, I think Ambry Thomas will come up big this game. Like in 2019, each game he plays in, he gets better. Good job, guys. Yeah, I definitely think that Ambry gets better in every game.
He shut down Devontae Smith. I can't wait to see him do it again.
I got to ask him about it tomorrow. Hey, are you the anti-Devontae? He's probably,
yeah.
No, man. No, I'm not.
Absolutely. I'm going to shut him down again. You know what was so funny last week when there was a tweet saying that Geno Smith is expected to play and Diamador Lenore quote tweeted it and said, so.
Right. Diamador Lenore is cocky. I love Diamador Lenore's mentality. He's really cocky. And he's a lot more physical this year. Bazzi Mian said, who cares about the battle-tested nature? Jimmy G and Patrick Mahomes have the same amount of fourth-quarter comeback wins according to Pro Football Reference. Well, there you go.
Okay.
Stats lie to use statistics. Matthew Sanders. Philly wins with physical, risky football. I think it comes crashing down against a pissed-off defense. Big mistake calling them out. Going to be some extra mustard. We'll see.
Extra mustard.
Okay, couple last ones before we call it quits. And we appreciate it. We got a bunch of people in the room. Glad everybody's here. Talking football with Grant Cohn on this Tuesday of Niners Eagle week. What do you see as the key to victory? If I said, give me just one key to victory for the 49ers in this game, what do you see it as? And it could be on either side of the ball. It can be any factor at all. I've got one idea. I can go first if you want me to go first, and you can.
No, I'll go. Okay. I know you want to talk offense. You want to talk about Brock. You want to make it about Kyle. But to me, I know they lost the game on offense immediately last year, but I think they also gave up 148 yards on the ground and 4 rushing touchdowns. And I don't think you can beat the Eagles. They give up 31 points to the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. I want to see what Steve Wilkes and the defense can do. I want to see how they contain Jalen Hurts as a scrambler, as a runner. Are they going to keep him out of the end zone? Are they going to stop this Eagles run game? Because their pass game isn't that sophisticated. It's some RPOs, some deep shots, and some off-schedule throws. They don't do a whole lot in their passing game. It's complimentary. They're going to stop that run game. They shut down a few running backs the last few weeks, but they got destroyed by Joe Mixon.
5-4 carry. Yeah.
So what's going to happen this week against DeAndre Swift and Jalen Hurts? Hurts in particular. That's a big one right there. The Niners run D.
I don't want to copy, but I'll say this. Offensive football.
You were thinking that too, though.
There's 2 things I was thinking. First, I was thinking about, I get the visual, Kinlaw getting kicked out of the club, and the Niner D-line's got to be better, right? They can't just get owned. They won't win if they get owned. Okay, that's one. But then I think more about what I've seen from Philly, because I have watched the All-22 on Philly the last 3 games. And Hurts is everything to them. Everything.
Yeah.
He makes all the plays. He's the reason their run game goes. He gets all the first downs. He is so important to them. So I would say Greenlaw and Woerner closing the space on that second level against the run.
Making him feel them.
Or maybe even delayed blitzes to not let him sit back there for when he wants to hold the ball for 5 seconds.
And that's the thing, defending the run a lot of times is on pass plays.
Yeah.
Defending the run a lot of times is just stop. Don't let him scramble.
Right. No, I mean, for him, it might be even more important than their actual run game.
You never rush past him.
Yeah.
You never, ever rush past him. Your rush depth is very important.
And the coordinated, you can't, you maybe fewer games up front, because games have a tendency to send guys wide and create openings and running lanes.
Correct.
You know, I know the Niners are really good at coordinating games, and they play some incredible games. But the last couple weeks, keep them hemmed in. But to me, it's Greenlaw and Woerner's ability to when he commits to the run, if they can snuff him out like a candle and get to his spot faster than him and stay on their feet, not slip down, all these things that are so good that he does, because every one of his runs, every time I watch the film in the last month, every time he has a run for a first down, all the defenders, Grant, are like, they're like, because he just broke them down, and they're going to be out. That's a first down, and there's a feeling of futility when he burns you for a first. So I think it's about Woerner and Greenlaw shutting down Hurts on the run game.
I'm with it. Let's talk offense though. Because frankly, the Niners offense lost the NFC Championship game on the first series because they tried a play action pass that was the wrong thing to call. And I feel like, can you not lose the game with your passing offense? No turnovers, no serious injuries. Take that pass rush seriously. There's a lot of holes in that defense. Just don't lose the game. You have a great defense. It matches up well with the Eagles. You have a really good running back. Don't lose the game with your passing game. Don't get arrogant. You don't have to win that way. If it's raining, have some respect for Hassan Reddick. You can't block him. Don't lose the game there like you did last time. You can work around that.
Brock's clock has got to be on right. He can't. He's got to know when to get rid of the ball. And if it does, and if it's not there, then throw it away and punt. The one thing I don't want to see him do is I want to see him be more patient than he sometimes is. I mean, we think of him as a guy who doesn't challenge down the field. Now we have more games to watch. He does challenge down the field. If anything, he gets a little impatient. Sometimes you got to check it down. Sometimes you got to be a little bit more patient. I think Brock's really got to show patience in this game. And then, the one guy who's just been an outstanding 49er is Mitch Wishnowsky. And lean on him. If this guy's got an ability, Grant, to pin you inside your 20 with regularity. If it's not there, don't throw the pick. Don't, take the big time sack. Throw it away, punt, and play defense, and see if your punter can stick them inside their own 10-yard line. I mean, it's to me, Wishnowski's been a major threat.
He's a weapon, an offensive weapon. They got to get him snaps on offense. He's too good.
He's good. I'll say this: he's been worth that 4th-round pick. He looks good.
I hated that pick, and I got to say I was wrong. Sorry, Mitch.
Yeah, seriously, I hated it too. Hated the Moody pick too.
I didn't realize he had all these knuckle punts. He has the knuckle punt. If you remember, what was it? Mighty Ducks 3, Keenan Thompson, knuckle puck. You don't know what I'm talking about.
No, I don't.
Sorry. It was a forgettable movie. Mighty Ducks 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go up to Wishnowsky tomorrow though, and I want him to show me how he does it, because he punts the ball a different way, and the thing just sits. I mean, it's like a golfer sticking it on the green. It's amazing. I don't know what his technique is, and I don't do a lot of interviews with him, but I've interviewed him a couple times, and he's a great talker. All right, 2 last ones here: Sirianni and Shanahan.
They're saying it was Mighty Ducks 2. I want to get that right. I'm really sorry. It's been a long
Mighty
time.
Ducks 2.
Sorry, Emilio. Sorry.
Good Disney movie. Sirianni, Shanahan. Is there an advantage for either? Is Sirianni more likely to outcoach Kyle, or is Kyle more likely to outcoach Sirianni? I hate Sirianni, and I've never even met him. I hate him. I hate his smug look. I hate his trash talk. I'd love to see them run like Debo, like right towards him and just barrel him over on the sideline and bury him.
Silly.
I can't stand Sirianni. I can't stand. He just seems like the kind of guy that, he talks trash to fans. I mean, he's the most hateable Niner opponent coach since Jimmy Johnson.
All right, fair enough. But we're talking about, let's take our emotions out of it and say who's going to outcoach the other one.
Right.
In terms of scheme, I don't know how much Sirianni even has to do with he has coordinators, he has play callers. That may not be what he does. But in terms of here's what I think. You were talking about keys to the game.
Yeah.
This is going to be a close game, most likely. And it's not just going to be enough to have a killer script, a killer game plan, and then cruise the rest of the way. Kyle might fall behind. Kyle probably is going to have to make an adjustment at some point in this game, in the game. How good is that adjustment going to be? Because that's not necessarily his strong suit. And he doesn't necessarily have to make adjustments very much because his team is so good and he gets the big leads and cruises. But Sirianni seems like he makes good adjustments mid-game. He's won a lot of games. It seems like because he's not focused on calling plays, he can be more attuned to game management. And it seems like he's pretty good at that. I like how aggressive he is going for it on fourth down. I think he's one of the best coaches in the league when it comes to that. So I think one of the keys to the game is Kyle matching Sirianni's ability to make in-game adjustments.
And do you give an advantage to either side?
I mean, it's what Sirianni does. I would give an advantage to Philly, but it's an opportunity for Kyle to show that he can do it too. I mean, Kyle, remember in the NFC Championship game, he embarrassed himself too. He needed to challenge that fourth down call, and he didn't on the first drive. And the Eagles ended up scoring a touchdown. That was essentially his fault. He could have kept those 7 points off the board, but he hesitated. That's not an adjustment, but how are you going to react in the moment in a big game? He doesn't have to most of the time. They just blow teams out. It's not going to be like that this week.
We got to see Kyle be ready to challenge any play from the opening kickoff, unlike last year where he wasn't really ready to challenge that play because the game hadn't settled in. That's the way that these big games go. It may be the first play of the game that you got to challenge. Be ready to use your challenge at any point. I think Kyle's got to find a way to show some formation variation and confuse Philadelphia's defense and pick them apart where they're weakest, which is that intermediate middle part of the field. All right, let me just read these last supers, and then I got one closing question, and then we're out. We got this one, Rob Schneider. When things get tough, Hurts and Allen ran the ball on third and longs and red zone situations. Also, were zipping the ball deep. Can Brock do the same? Yeah, it's big. That is a major question. Major question.
I mean, I don't know. He's a pretty good scrambler, and he does push the ball down the field better than Jimmy Garoppolo, but we know what Brock does well. We know what Brock does well. He does a lot of things really well. He's not Josh Allen.
He's
not going to beat Josh Allen.
He takes good care of the ball for the most part, as far as the interception total, but he is aggressive. So how is he going to be in this game? You know, and the other question is, how's he going to be with a wet ball? Because he didn't look good with the wet ball in Cleveland. Rob Schneider says also, if we stop the run, we win. Hurts, 18 touchdowns, 10 picks. I kind of agree with the stop the run. They got a great chance to win. Joshua Wyatt says Geno and Dak aren't considered elite largely because of failures against the Niners the last 3 years. You can't say the 49ers can't beat an elite quarterback when they are literally the standard by which you judge if a quarterback is elite. There's a lot said there. We could go on.
Geno is definitely not considered elite for a lot of reasons. Josh, I love you. The Dak thing was correct. Geno, that was a stretch. Geno,
I don't think those are elite guys either way, whether the Niners beat them or didn't beat them. I don't like either of those guys that much. Boxing fan says, win or lose, don't treat this game as a Super Bowl. Simply take it as an opportunity to make a statement. Yeah, I mean, I agree. If you're the 49ers, if I'm Kyle, what I say to my team before we hit the field is, guys, you know what? This isn't the end of the world. If we win this game, we don't win anything. They don't give us a T-shirt. We're not going to the Super Bowl. If we lose this game, take some of that pressure off and let's just play fast and loose and let it all hang out and give it the best you got. And odds are you're going to have to roll back into Philly later anyway. And at that point, there'll be more on the line at that point. Matthew Sanders says time of possession. If the O keeps it for 38 to 40 minutes, we win. I could definitely see that being important, trying to minimize Philly's possessions, but also Philly showed the ability to score fast the last 2 or 3 weeks, so that might not be a factor. 2 pounds.
I think it's a game for the Niners anyway, though. Like, even if they lose and they get 4, like, they're not going to fall past the 3 seed because
you
the
just
4
want to
seed
get blown
is
out, right?
Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean,
in terms of seed,
no, you're right.
It's just going to be them or Detroit as 2 or 3. That's what it's going to be. And if you're 2, if you're 3, what's the difference?
This one is about more like, can you not get blown out in Philly and send them a message that you can beat them and create that question? You don't want
to keep your quarterback upright. Can you keep 1? You couldn't. You had 2. Both got hurt. Keep 1 quarterback healthy in this game. That's the key. How about that?
Can you
can
win?
Real simple.
Can you get close to winning instead of double loss on the line of scrimmage. That they took a double loss. Fish and Chips is produce early and shut up the crowd is a key need. Well, that would definitely be important. Ken Konecki says 30-17 Niners. Brock's revenge game, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ken, I hope you're right.
I don't understand the concept of a revenge game or revenge season. Just win. Revenge. Yeah. Revenge for getting beat? I don't understand. It's football. It's a sport. You win or you lose. You don't get revenge.
And last year's last year.
In a game.
And official B&A Music 88 says Sirianni is the drunk divorced uncle. All right. now he's drunk. Official B&A Music. Kyle's going to use this game to set up play action next month. Oh, great.
Okay. 8D chess.
Yeah. Yes, we took a loss here, but we are ready to roll next time around.
I was just setting stuff up. That would be so funny if I said that after a game. I was just setting stuff up. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, look, guys, relax. I set everything up for the next game.
I just wanted to let this one go.
We're sitting chilling.
Yeah, we got this. We're chilling.
Okay. Yeah. Last question. Wild card factor. What is the wild card factor in this game? What's a factor in this game that you and I have not discussed, but you think, you know what? That could really be the wild card in this game.
We've discussed it. I'm sorry, it's a cop-out. But to me, it's the weather.
The weather.
From the Niners' perspective, they got to really be hoping it doesn't rain. Because it's not something they've faced very much this year. The Eagles just faced it a few days ago, and we saw what it looked like. It wasn't just like West Coast rain, where it's like, oh, this is kind of unpleasant as I walk through it. It was like sheets of downpouring rain that like you wouldn't want to get caught under. And that's what they were playing through. And the Niners don't have that much experience with it, as I just said. I think that's it's going to keep the score lower. It's going to limit what you can do in the passing game. It's going to limit how much motion and stuff you can do. It's going to limit a lot of what it's going to change the game plans. You got to prepare for it. You have to have a game plan for heavy rain, a game plan for no rain. I think it's a big one.
I think it's the fact that the Eagles, if you look at the numbers and if you watch their last month of football, they've struggled in pass coverage in that intermediate middle of the field. And that's where Brock Purdy is absolutely his most efficient. And I just really think that Kittle across the middle and Ayuk on the crossers, Debo on the crossers, I think it's going to be that intermediate middle area. I think Brock's going to crush them there. I think the 49ers are going to win a very, very close game. I'm going to say 24-21 49ers in a game where they have to come back in the second half to win it. So I'm going to say Purdy beats them by completing a high percentage of his passes in the intermediate middle to his 3 primary guys.
I got 24-20 Eagles. So we have essentially the same type of game. Interesting. I like it. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, and the last super from Joshua Wyatt, when they shut down Jalen, which they will, there will be people that will say he was exposed and is not really elite. We got to stop moving the goalposts.
Josh Wyatt predicting the future. I really thank you very much for telling us what's going to happen, which they will. I can hear it in his voice too. Shout out to Josh.
Great. When do you stream again? What's your schedule between now and the next couple of days?
I got Rob Stats Guerrera 9 a.m. Pacific tomorrow. I got Jesse 6 p.m. Pacific tomorrow. I got the coach on Thursday. Friday's a wild card day where I just try to keep you on your toes. And then Saturday is the Cohn phone. That's usually what I do.
Cohn phone, is there a particular time or just does it change up every
When I do it, I usually do it at 10 on a Saturday. I don't always do it. And I might not do it this weekend because I just did it last week. It was cool this weekend because it was 2 days after a game. People had a lot to say. Sometimes right before a game is less to talk about.
There's something fun. There's something really fun about the phone segments. You got to be careful and make sure that you know who's you're putting on there. But and as long as you keep a good pace, I don't know how do you give them a time limit?
I'm generous, and I tend to tell people try to keep it to 4 or 5 minutes. Gotcha. But you're a radio guy. I feel like you probably give him the hook after 30 seconds. What do you do?
Well, my son's, I do the calls with my kid on Wednesday nights. Mm-hmm. So that'll be our show tomorrow night. We'll go Wednesday night, me and Kev taking some phone calls, but it kind of depends. I do like to go as quick as I can, But I try not to give them any more than like 3 or 4 minutes. But there's times that I've let guys go on for, like Mr. Blue Magic went on for like 12 minutes one day.
I love Mr. Blue Magic. I love that it's like the same crew of people who call into different shows. I love that.
And
He's
it's
from
awesome.
New York, right?
Yeah, he's from New York.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you get the out-of-town Niner fan. Have you had the guy
from Maryland?
Yeah, a lot of people from Virginia, Maryland.
And Virginia. Yeah.
There's a guy who I love who calls us on Saturdays sometimes from or while he's making pizzas. He makes pizzas in Vegas.
That's cool.
And he's sitting there and he's like flipping the dough and the whole deal as he does the phone call. So always fun. So Grant, good stuff. Thanks to everybody. Hope everybody has a great rest of their day. I'm on with Raj, the great Raj, tonight at 7:30. And then I'll be doing a stream tonight after Warriors Kings. Do a little Warrior basketball on a Tuesday night. So that's coming up later today.
You don't stop.
No, today I'm hustling. And then tomorrow we'll be down in Santa Clara for more Niner stuff Wednesday and Thursday in Santa Clara. Grant, good stuff, man. Appreciate you. Have a good day.
Appreciate you too.
Thanks to New York Style Sausage. Thanks to Marin Auto Glass. And thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what